Grand Rising, Grand
Oh, Grand
Rising.
Rising. Cleopadra Sophia the Bodhi. So that's weird.
Yeah, that
You
little
joined just
experiment.
as a speaker. Like you automatically joined the
It let me
speaker.
do it because I signed out and signed in, and anyway, I'm gonna have to experiment a little bit more with my hardware to try to make it my life easier for this recording. But anyway, I'm here, and we haven't pre-discussed this topic because this information just came up literally today.
Hot
So
off the
you're
press.
getting hot off the press new information. Um, literally about basically unwombing the creator. I wanted to say unboxing, but I thought that would be too confusing. So I was like, no, we're taking the creator out of the box. Like literally what they trained us to do. I'm sorry for the lack of niceties, but this is like insane, like the whole thing. So we're talking about the womb and creation and all of this stuff. And so what they have done is they trained us using Pavlov techniques to put the creator in a box and to put limits on the creator and say how we want the creator to show up in our life. And so basically, 3 years ago on October the 8th, 2022, I had made a video. Oh shoot. Um
We can hear you.
oh, you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I know that just showed up on my okay, whatever. 3 years ago on October the 8th, 2022, I made a video, a live stream talking about is it time to retire? And I was saying to the, small, very small group of ladies that was following me at the time that it was time for us to remove our energy from the system and say we are not going to bear the yoke of being the diviners and carrying this whole system by divining. I didn't say it in those terms, but a year later, I came back with another video where I was talking about how, in the blessings of the 12 tribes, Issachar specifically was made the yoke bearer because Issachar, in terms of the 12 tribes, was the one that could navigate between the Torah, which is the rule of man, and the Tyrre, which is the rule of heaven. Like the images with because the Torah and the tarot, this is a whole nother rabbit hole, but the Torah is the tarot. The tarot is the Torah. Like these things are connected. And so I had made a video saying they put all the sins of the entire world on Benjamin. If you've been listening to these spaces, this is exactly what I said they did to Semi-Hiza or Satan. They literally put all the sins of the world on Satan. And Satan didn't even do them. This comes from the whole Abraham thing, which I'm not going to go into yet, but we probably will get into it at some point. So basically, in 2022, I had said, is it time to retire? In 2024, Black people got the message to withdraw our energy. It took 2 years, 2 years for what I asked for in 2024 2022 to show up, and it showed up in 2024. But it took 2 years to get the message to everyone in the spirit realm that it was time for us to sit back and not take on the responsibility of all of this. Like, it's really the weight of being able to do divining properly. And we weren't going to be responsible for that because they had literally put all the weight of the entire world on us. So one thing I also have been saying since that time, especially in that video, was that I was going to follow the creator wherever he went. Like, wherever he went, whatever information he was going to bring to us, I was going to be following that. And if it went into some scary places, if it went into some highs and it went into some lows, wherever it went, I was going to follow because why wouldn't I? What sense does it make to have a belief, a faith in a creator that you're not willing to follow? I mean, why would I put my creator in a box? So at that time, I started the process of unboxing the creator, unwombing the creator, birthing the creator into my life. So as I birthed the creator into my life, the creator birthed me into his life. And so now I have this wide range of knowledge where I can see the creator in almost everything. I can say, oh, this is how it ties to that. I could tie it into the Bible. I could see the signs. And this specific thing is what they don't want people to have access to, because this, what I'm talking about, used to be called old wives' tales. And basically what would happen is, okay, they talk about this specifically. Paul specifically talks about not listening to old wives' tales. But what he was really saying was women were the ones who were the diviners. We had that divining capacity. And so a woman would get an omen, i.e., a mislabeled 8.8 earthquake in Russia that you knew wasn't an 8.8 and that they totally lied about. And once one woman got that message that, hey, that earthquake was mislabeled, they need to fix that because it's just going to lead to more problems. Now you have two earthquakes in the Philippines, one last week, one this morning. Now you have an earthquake in Drake's Passage, which is coming closer to America, right? So, and they were all 7.8. All of them had tsunami warnings. So how do you have an 8.8 earthquake with no tsunami? That doesn't make sense. So what would happen is the women would get the intuition, the feeling, the, again, old wives' tale that something bad was going on, and they would start panicking because they knew, hey, something is going to happen. We have to do something about this. And the men, in their extreme stupidity and lack of understanding of anything, decided, oh, we're going to ignore the women. They're just being crazy. Something's wrong with them. Why would they say these things? Why would they do these things? Instead of taking the women seriously, they didn't take the women seriously. They literally looked at the women as if they was a joke. And so now you have this whole thing going on where the women who were always the arbiters of basically this divine knowledge, this women's intuition, they've turned the women's intuition into a joke. It's like, oh, those women, those silly women, they're always worried about stuff that's not happening and all of this stuff. And the women are like, no, this is serious. We have to do something. We need to prepare. And so this ties into the in the 1800s, especially like the 1830s, they started going into basically they created all these mental institutions because the women were saying, hey, something is wrong. Why are y'all doing this? There's a problem. Women were saying this, and the men were like, nah, everything is great. We're just gonna move on with our plan of taking over the world, and we're not gonna let you silly women get in the way. So what happened? This is what they would do, and this is how they also obtained a lot of land in this country and many other countries. Women own land. And so when they committed a woman to a mental institution, they would literally take her land. If she had children, they would take her children, put them into these again, like child protective services, this whole thing. So this whole thing where they started stealing women and children and abusing them and all this stuff, this goes back at least to the 1850s when they were trying to figure out how they were going to explain or basically pretend like nothing was bad was happening when you could see everywhere that something was going on. And this went on for 100 years almost until the 1970s when they closed all those mental institutions. But the women, the families, the things that were going on were all destroyed by that point. And this all goes back to a woman's womb and her capacity to literally use her womb and her gut instinct to tell what was going on. So this ties into the research that Pavlov was doing. Okay. So Pavlov, he was actually, of course, everyone knows the research that he was doing with the dogs. It's my belief now that he was actually trying to figure out how to quantify or validate a woman's intuition. That's why I believe I don't know. We're still going back and forth with that, but that's what I think happened. He was trying to figure out how to quantify women's intuition. And so what he was doing was he was doing very compassionate experimentation on animals, trying to figure out what happened when basically you bypass the digestive tract with food to see how the intuition of the dog basically came forward. Now, my friend and I have a disagreement on this because she thinks it was him that was doing it for evil, but me, I don't think that, because Pavlov, before he, first of all, his whole story is crazy because he was in Russia. So before he became a scientist, he was in seminary school, and in seminary school he lost his faith in God. And this happens to a lot of seminarians. This is what he said. People go to seminary, they masculinize religion, and then the men who are sensitive to female energy reject it. Like, this is not how any of this works. You guys don't know what you're talking about. So I don't think he necessarily rejected God. He called himself an atheist. I don't think that's just an easy way to describe it, because at the time Pavlov was doing his experimentations, that's when you have the whole Russia socialism or whatever that crazy stuff they was doing over there. And so basically Pavlov's doing these experiments. He asked to leave because he's going against Lenin. He's cussing this man out in public all the time. He don't care about what they got going on. So he asked to leave. Lenin's like, no, we need you here to do these experiments, because what the government was doing is what the government always does. You have somebody who discovered something, right? The government is paying for the research. And so when you put out your research, they're taking the research and weaponizing it. How can we kill more people with this research? That's what the government does. Always has, always will. And so this is the whole thing. People think, and it says it in the articles, but it's a little bit, you have to understand that, or you have to consider that Pavlov was married and he had children, and his wife was named Seraphima. So, and the seraphim are angels. Seraphima. Okay, she was probably an Orthodox Christian. She was probably not a Jew, because that was another thing. You had Jews that was coming into Russia. You had the Orthodox Christianity, and I call Russia the fatherland. America is the motherland. Russia's the fatherland, in my opinion. And so you have him here in the middle of this thing with all these socialists, and they're doing all these crazy things. But that's not the research that he's doing. He was the one who advocated for, first of all, when he did research experiments on animals, he didn't euthanize them. He didn't put them on a bunch of heavy drugs. He didn't have them like bugged out. He let them be normal and just observe whatever it was he was trying to observe. Second thing about Pavlov is he wanted the animal to live. He did whatever it took for the animal to live a full life and find somewhere for the animals to go and all this stuff. He wasn't just like how they do, like Fauci and the puppy mills, where they're running all these experiments on the beagles and then like dumping them like in the middle of the forest somewhere. He wasn't doing that. He was really compassionate towards these animals. So there's no way he would have taken this information and used it for wickedness. But the government would. Stalin and Lenin and all of these guys, that's, of course they would have. And so now you have this whole thing of, he has figured out basically the connection between the spirit, the body, and the soul via the nervous system. He literally connected it all to the nervous system, and how basically one of his main discoveries is, if you could, with the dogs, he would ring the bell, right? And the dogs would salivate, and then because they would see the food. So he was he was observing that if you rang the bell, even if no food was there, you still got the salivation response. And so how they weaponize that is they give you dog whistles. They give you conspiracy theories and say, the earth is flat. And so, or let's show you pictures of Earth from space. And people are like, there's no way the Earth can be round, all of that. There's a dog whistle. So you start salivating, i.e., re-traumatizing, in the case of humans, yourself, really, by repeating this information that has no basis in reality. And the next thing you know, you have activated your nervous, or overstimulated your nervous system so that they can sneak some Trojan horse in the back door of what they're actually trying to do. It's really propaganda for sure, but it's absolutely torture. It's torture. They turned Pavlov's research into torture. And it's easy to see once you understand what you're looking at. But if you don't know what you're looking at, it just looks like a bunch of jumbled nonsense. But you can follow this from a woman seeing rain when it's not supposed to be rain and saying, hey, you know, something weird is going on, to, hey, we don't want these women complaining because you got the women out here making a bunch of noise. We don't want to hear what they have to say. Lock them in a facility, experimenting on them, because they were experimenting on people in these uh, homes or whatever mental institutions they was putting them in, experimenting on them horribly, and basically trying to push this whole narrative of, you know, these quote unquote 13 families and all this like crazy stuff they was trying to do, pushing it through while taking all of the intuitive women, the women who held the knowledge, the women who were sensitive, pulling them out. This is why we're left with people who, when they do intuitive, when they engage in divining, they're not divining on behalf of the world. I mean, on behalf of the Father, the God, the Creator. They're divining on behalf of the world, on behalf of the deceiver, on behalf of Allah, Jehovah, whatever you want to call him. They're not divining on behalf of the world because they're of the world. They took all the ones who could divine on behalf of the Creator and disabled them through all of this trauma. So, like for myself, I have been saying what I need $5 million to reset my nervous system. I can't say that anymore. That's not what it is. I can, my nervous system is, it's not that my nervous system is overloaded. It's that they keep throwing out these dog whistles and I'm responding to the dog whistles. So one of the best things that you can do is when you have outside stimulation, you don't respond. You just don't respond. You say, I'm not going to have a response to this. You make up in your mind that you're not going to have a response to this because certain things are literally, they literally have this system rigged to propagandize you and trigger your personal dog whistles that they put in you as a child. Again, with this whole being off the calendar, not understanding your chart and all of this stuff, like people don't even know themselves. So of course they're not going to know what triggers them. And then they get triggered and then they're off to the races. They have overloaded their nervous system and they're sneaking something in the back door. And 3 years ago, on October the 8th, I disabled that. When I said, we're not going to be responsible for the burdens of the world anymore, because that's what they had done. Put all the burdens in the world on the diviners. And we said, no more. And that what you're seeing is the unraveling of that specific system. Because if we can get dog whistled, right, for triggering our nervous system, we can also get dog whistles from the Creator to rebalance our nervous system. Like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, wow. We get confirmations from the Creator on the positive side the same way. They're just copying the system. They're not smart. They're just copycats. And so that's what I believe is going on. And this is really important because people have to ignore what triggers them. You have to be calm. You have to literally ignore it. Like you see something that specifically would trigger you, specifically, you have to say, that's interesting. And you move on and refocus your energy on what it is you're trying to do. Focus is very, very important. If you focus on your goals, whatever your goal is, you'll be able to achieve it. Now, if you don't know what your goals are, what your goals should be, or whatever, then you need to get a reading from me so that we can go through that. But on the flip side of that, you can also just look into your own chart, look into your own placements. But you're going to have to do something in order to focus on what isn't going to trigger you. So for a whole 8 months, I've been asking for money to reset my nervous system. I can't get it. That's not what it's for. I want the money so that I can help my friends, so I can help my family, so that I can do the good work, not so that I can reset my nervous system. I should never said that. But I got caught up in all the whatever, all the dog whistles of, oh, well, you're in poverty because of something you did. There's something you can do to get yourself out of poverty. Neither one of those are true. That's not God. It's a scripture. God gives us the ability and the capacity to do things because we ask for them. They're gifts. So if it's a gift, freely you've been given, freely you give. I say it all the time. And that's how this stuff needs to play out. We have to refocus our energy on what it is we're trying to achieve and it not being a result of a work that we did. We cannot earn the ability to have been born on this planet. That's not how it works. You were called in. Like, you were born for a purpose. You were called in. And so you can't earn that. Once you're called in, you don't earn the ability to be called in again. It just doesn't work like that.
Wow. This is great. Yeah, it's interesting because what we discussed with that whole ice situation, and I've been mulling that over for the last few days, and I was talking earlier today with a good friend of mine that about just in terms of the fact that the system, it's like it constantly wants to trigger you, and not necessarily like a negative type of trigger. It could be, of course. They just want your energy. They want you to feed them. They
Yes.
want you to feed it all the time. And as you said, the way that it is fed is through your reaction, and in particular your low vibrational reaction, but really in general is just your energy. And so, if someone
Yeah.
goes up to you and says like, hey, you're an asshole, and you just absorb it and say thanks and just keep moving forward, you won. You won that situation essentially. Now,
Right.
if one was to be called an asshole and then start getting upset, angry, fight back, and oh, fuck you and this and that, that's feeding the system energy. So there's a lot of humans, most
What?
humans out here are, I mean, and unconsciously, I think for the most part, are just activated in your life to try to get us to react and feed it energy, feed the system energy. So when we're able to recall our energy back and understand that every time we express ourselves in this reality, we're sending out energy. We're sending out messages. We're sending out
Right.
signals. We're sending out commands. And in understanding that, we become extreme. We receive. We get a lot of very high standards. Essentially, we build a very high standards in terms of what we do. And basically, I mean, what this is teaching us is what it means to be on the throne. When you're on the throne, you're not going to
Right.
react in any way. You're just absorbing it. And based on what you have absorbed and alchemized, and based on what is being provided for you, then you command. But instead, what has happened is, as you said, with like the Pavlovian type of mechanism, is something happens, react. Something happens, react. Something happens, react. So
Right.
there's no time to cultivate the energy. There's no time to absorb the energy. There's no time to digest it. There's no time to alchemize it. There's no time to do anything because it's just, oh, the bell rang, saliva. The bell rang,
Right.
saliva.
Right.
And when we start to move away from that system, they send the humans, it's like they activate them to come and again
Yep.
try to like bring you back to your cage, bring you back to your
Right.
to your room at the mental institution. It's like, hey, come back
Mm-hmm.
here, come back here,
Yeah.
here's the bells, and so it's like scarcity, insecurity, doubt, fear, like
Right.
whatever it might be. And so when we move towards being unattached to the people in our reality, or to just unattached to the physical reality, you can't take it personal. It becomes very difficult for us to be giving so much energy to the outside, even though you're overflowing with energy. That's where we start to move towards being like the creator of the reality, because we're overflowing with
Right.
energy, and because we continue to do the work, the energy keeps being empowered and keep keeps becoming more potent. And as a result, when you make a move, when you speak, when you think, when you do, when you act, boom, explosion. Explosion after explosion after
Right.
explosion. And they will try to send their people to try to ring the bells, ring the bells, ring the bells. And you just, there's no ringing of no bells.
Right. So, because I want to add to that is that you do choose when you respond. It's really because what like the East, the oh my goodness, I can't believe what the Eastern philosophies teach is that you just don't respond to anything. And that's not the right answer either. What you have to do is always go for your self-preservation. You have to respond to things that challenge your ability to preserve your own life. So what they want you to do when you go too far on one side of that is whenever you see something, even something that is going to take you out, you don't respond to it because hey, this doesn't, I need to keep my inner. You're harvesting your energy for yourself, but you're not giving it freely. See, there's two parts of that. Freely you've been given, and freely you have to give. So when you
Right,
see
right.
incidents that challenge preservation of life, then you have to put your energy into those things, the things that actually matter as a result of preserving life. So if you like, for example, again, they're triggering about like this whole Middle East stuff. Like they're always triggering that. But what happened was that people weren't triggered in the way they expected. People were triggered to give their energy to the cause of the preservation of life. And so what they were expecting is that people were going to give their energy to the cause of war because they believe we're animals. Like if they believe we're animals, that if they greatest ally, there's a people that God is going to protect, and we're supposed to just, oh my gosh, you're ringing the bell. They're ringing the bell louder than they
Holocaust,
can ring it, and
Holocaust.
people are like, Holocaust, like preservation of life. Humans are screaming, hey, that's a child. That's a baby. Why are you killing babies? Like that's not right. You shouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean? And so they were. That's not the. That was not a response they expected. But see, again, they have never dealt with the fact that the diviners, like I said, none of this happens if I don't say on the internet, hey, the diviners, we're unbinding ourselves from that curse that you put on us. We're not doing this anymore. And now they're expecting their diviners to divine in their favor because, like I said, there's a scripture that says literally, if you are a false prophet, which is and this is relevant to our thing here. Let me go back. Paul was telling them how, or Peter was telling them how to determine whether someone was a spirit was a false spirit or a true spirit. And he told in the letter, I think it's Ephesians 2. He told them that you will know a false spirit because a false spirit will never say that Jesus Christ incarnated. Like literally, they will not say no parts of the Nicene Creed and believe it and act like it. And the false spirits, that's how they are. The true spirits will believe it. And what happens with the true spirits is if you have a spirit of truth in you, then the people who listen to you will also have a spirit of truth. But if you have a spirit of falsehoods, then the people who have the spirit of the false spirits, the false prophets, will all listen to that person. So the fewer listeners we have on here is probably the better because these are the only people who have the spirit of God in them. It's not a lot of us. It's a very small amount of people who have the spirit of God in them, but it's a very great amount of people who have the false prophet spirit within them. And so that's why these other channels have all, and these stations and these calls have all of these people, and our calls don't have a lot because they're all false prophets. It's real easy. They follow the deceiver in one of his many forms because either they believe Jesus incarnated as a physical entity and they're trying to live like that, or they don't. It's literally those two things. And so the if for some reason we did have hundreds and thousands of people listening, I would be like, wait a minute now, who got the false spirit on here? Because I know all these people not of God. Now we can convert them. This is the whole mission with the network marketing, all that is to convert people into the spirit of God, right? That's really what it is. It's a conversion, and not a spiritual one either. A literal conversion from the false prophet spirit to the true spirit. And it's not religious. It's, do you believe that Jesus incarnated? Like, do you think he's a real person based on everything that you've seen? It's like, and if you believe he's real, do you think, if you believe he's real, he said you could do greater than him. So what are you doing with that? Are you trying to do greater things than him? If like me, I would always say, man, he got hemmed up all along the way and all of that. So it's your plan to do what you're trying to do more foolproof than Jesus' plan? Like, do you have details, like contingency plans for your contingency plans to try to make sure that you get to the final result? Are you determined, like I said before about childbirth, are you determined to birth the thing? You have to be determined. It takes a certain determination to come through childbirth with you alive and the child alive. It takes a level of determination most people don't have. And that's what Jesus, he was determined to get on that cross one way or another. And literally he did it. He provoked everybody in the process. He went into the temple and started teaching all kinds of stuff. These people were flabbergasted. Flabbergasted. And he provoked them so that they would put him on the cross so that he could show who was really who around there.
Wow. So could you maybe actually we
Tell me, I know I went through a lot like really fast because I just, I can't believe this stuff. It's
yeah, I mean
amazing.
maybe we could do a space,
Shocking.
the next space is because it'd be good to talk about like um the freely given, freely or freely received, freely given, like that whole kind of, because essentially like right now people are taught to move from that Pavlovian response. So it's like,
Right.
okay, that's good to understand. What does it really look like to move from what I guess I would call like the creator mode, like the creator side, where it's not like you're just like an unwilling participant of this reality, but you're actually like actively creating in many ways through one's connection to the divine. Because like if you notice, and as you were saying with like the Eastern kind of the Eastern way of thinking, is there isn't a path right now. There isn't a path to be able to function in this reality in a way that is not completely tied in with the Pavlovian response. And as a result, like what you
Okay.
were saying with the freely given, is people have been setting up these toll booths, not understanding that when you are called to provide for free, you do it. You have to do it. Like it's this. It's like everyone. Well, basically, what I see is like people that get the alpha, whatever that alpha might be, is because they don't know if they're gonna get it again. They like hoard it. They
Right.
build like a fortress around that alpha, and because they basically know that they can't receive more of it. At least they think that they can't. But when the alpha is freely provided for, it's in many ways not that it cheapens, but you just can make it rain. You're just able to make
Right.
the alpha rain. And this is a dichotomy, right? Because if you have all this alpha and you're providing it freely, how do you not get caught up in the Pavlovian response of how you go about providing this energy? How you go about providing this, like this, because it's a frequency, it's a high vibrational energetic
Right.
frequency. But if we have the Pavlovian response, which as you talked about when it comes we talked about when it comes to the ice, right? Like that ice example with me, that was the Pavlovian response. They knew that they were going to get me.
Right.
They knew that they were going to be able to
Right.
convince me to essentially use and call out my energy to fund this endeavor. While at the same time, well, I have so much energy to give that I can just be, just directing it all over the place. But obviously, it has to be way more focused. Like it has to be way more. Um, we have to be extremely aware of where we are sending the energy and be even more aware of these Pavlovian responses because they're basically traps in many ways, like a minefield.
Right. Right. Okay. So first, I would say that I can't remember. It went right over my head. Okay. Even though they have the system set up for us to respond to things, certain things do require a response. And so there's a difference between unconsciously responding and consciously responding. Unconsciously responding is when you respond to something you don't exactly, you can't pinpoint why it matters. Um But the solution to this is what I was going to say. It just came back. The solution to this is the calendar because they work on the schedule. They're following the energies. And so we are in control of the energies right now. So the solution is the calendar. Let me just bottom line it. The solution is the calendar because I've been just following my own, not just my own energy, but the different energies, trying to figure out what each one means. That's how I came across all of this stuff. So on certain days, um they know certain energy is active because the 13-day cycle is a global cycle, and so they are sending out certain energies on each day of these 13 days. Okay. And so, for example, no, let me start with the scripture. Okay, so I'm going to read the scripture. It's not long, but I'm going to read it from the Orthodox Study Bible because it doesn't read the same as the King James. So this is Ephesians 2, and I'm going to obviously make comments because this will explain to you how you do this. It's very, first of all, the answer is in the Bible. Like, they give, as long as you're willing to do the research. Like, this is the whole issue. You can't put God in a box. So if you read the scripture and the scripture says a word, and you're like, I wonder what that word means, and you don't go investigate it, you miss the total meaning of the script. It's not, you have to look at it where it was in the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is the feminine expression of the energy, and the New Testament is the masculine expression of the energy. So first, when I'm reading something, the first thing, if I'm in the New Testament, I look at where it's used in the Old Testament. If I'm in the Old Testament, I look at where it's used in the New Testament. I look at what the word is in Hebrew, then I look at what the word is in Greek, and then I go and look for a god or goddess with that name. I'm telling you, it's a foolproof program. Every single time I have found exactly what it is that I'm trying to figure out, like what it is that's being communicated in a particular scripture. So we'll get to that. It's one of these in this scripture. So, and he made you, and he no, and you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins. Basically, we were dead in our sin. Like, and that's gonna, we'll have to talk about the dry bones and prophesying to the dry bones, but we were dead in our sin. We were dead. We were, like you said, our energy was being harvested, Pavlov, drained all the way out. So the fact that we're alive to consider our energy was used like that means that we're alive. Because the dead people out there, the dry bones, they don't know they're being harvested like this. So the fact that you have the capacity to see your energy being used in this way means that you're alive. And you didn't make yourself alive. That was the creator, whatever God made you alive. It wasn't you. You didn't do that. And so that's the first. If you getting people to realize they're being harvested in this way, this very specific way, is really difficult. Because you can tell people, hey, dot, dot, dot. They don't believe you. They be because they got the lying spirit. So you got to try to bypass the lying spirit. Again, that's where the social proof and all that stuff goes in. That's what Jesus did. That's why he walked around with a group of 12 people, plus all the women, plus all the other people. It was a social proof. So this all ties together. Like you can't have one of these things without having another of these things. They all go together. So go ahead.
Yeah.
You gonna make a
Just to
comment? Go
add
ahead.
a quick side note on that. Exactly, is because essentially what we are here to show is, and it's not even the money, right? The social proof is not even the money, although that's obviously a
No.
big driver because that's what drives a lot of these humans. But it's
Right.
when you perform in a way that becomes impossible for people to negate, when it becomes impossible for people to say, I doubt that. And that's really, I mean, in many ways what Jesus did. Jesus became so powerful just in his ability to do what he was doing and what he is, that not only did he build a following, but it was like everybody had to, not everybody, but obviously the ones that were around him and that were inspired by him, and even up to this point still are being inspired by him, even though it was co-opted in the ways that it's been co-opted, is that
Right.
people were in such awe that a human was able to do what he was doing, that they instantly became believers. And even if it was an instant, like, they could not be stay deceived. When he showed up, their
No.
ability to stay deceived was not possible. And he showed them what was possible in the human being, in the human spirit. And when
Right.
you are shown that there is a possibility to be higher than what you thought was possible, that's transformational. It becomes very impossible to not be a believer. And so in terms of, kind of, as you were saying, with the social proof and like what we're doing, is it's it's essentially like we're not reacting to the reality and the chaos and everything that is going on. Like, we're essentially just like letting them deal with their shit as we
Right.
continue to go deeper into performing at the highest levels possible via doing the energetic work, following the calendar, all the stuff that like is coming together. And
Right.
by doing so, our ability to perform in this reality is going to be so intense, is going to be so awe-inspiring, that obviously people are going to just be, as they call it, one-shotted. They're going to be headshot. It's going to be a headshot straight to their dome.
Yeah. Right. Like, how did you do this? Okay, so that's in the scripture. Okay, so and you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, who they call the Antichrist. Among also we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others. But God, who is rich in mercy, because of his great love, which he loved us, even when we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved, raised us up together, and made us sit together in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches to come. He might show the exceeding riches of his grace in his kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So we deserve the exceeding riches because of the work that we're going to do. We were created for the exceeding riches to do the work, not I have to work to get the riches. That's a total flip in like understanding. Like, no, you don't get rich by your work. That's what the world says. The world says, hey, suffer, work hard, burn yourself out, and then you'll get the keys to the kingdom. But God said he created us to rule with Christ. So what is the whole work thing about? No, the work is what we do because of the riches that we have. It's a total like opposite of the energy. So that word grace. Okay, this was crazy, and now we're going off on a tangent. As I always say, the Christians, y'all might want to leave. So there's a Greek goddess that's the goddess of joy. They use it's the same. This is how I found it. In the Old Testament, let me see. Okay, no, it's in Luke. In Luke in 15 and 10, it's a story of the prodigal son. Okay, and so they use a very specific phrase in I think in 10 or in 12, which it says the Greek word means made good by verbal discipline or to be merry. Because basically what happens in the prodigal son is the son leaves, there's a famine again, there's a famine, he comes back, and the father sees him coming, they kill the fattened calf, and they make merry. And this word made good by verbal discipline. And I was like, well, what kind of word is that? Like, what does that even mean? So I said, let me look and see if there is a goddess with this name. The name is Euphrosyne, Euphrosyne. And she is the goddess, one of the Greek goddesses of the three charities. And she's specifically the goddess of joy. And there's also a Saint Euphrosyne whose feast day is on September the 25th. So the Greek goddesses, the charities. Now, mind you, this is what this grace, Euphrosyne, that's what Ephesians 2 and 8 says. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is a gift of God. Okay. So for by grace, or Euphrosyne, Euphrosyne is the goddess of joy. Okay. So by joy you are saved. In your joy you are saved, not in your suffering. People believe right now that if they're the more they suffer, the more saved they are. This is what they tell you in a Protestant church. The more you suffer, the more saved you are. Even though that word, Euphrosyne, is the goddess of um joy. So how can you be saved by suffering where it says you're saved by joy? That's not, those things don't go together. So the three Greek goddesses that are the charities, there's Aglaia, who is splendor, Euphrosyne, which is joy, and Thalia, which is good cheer. So when I was telling you that, hey, you need to be having fun and all this stuff, this is like the same day I found this information out. This kind of stuff is not, but this is not on my personal calendar. This is on the global 13-day cycle. So just by studying the 13-day cycle, I've been able to find these little, very specific details of knowledge that tell people how to engage this energy. So, what would you do when you hear about something that doesn't make you feel good? Well, you engage in joy. You either in the example of horrific death, you celebrate the lives of the people who have passed away. In the case of like the flat earth, you celebrate the capacity to have a thought on the earth. You turn everything into a celebration. Oh, you broke your leg, let's have a party. You know that very well. That's what they do in these fraternities and sororities. They turn everything into a party. That's how we're supposed to respond to it. Everything is supposed to be a celebration. If you're celebrating even your losses, if you're celebrating even your losses, you are engaging in this grace, in this joy, and you are being saved through faith. It's the constant celebrations that create the saving by faith, which is insane to me. So I I rewrote the sentence. Or this is what it actually, well, no, that's too complicated, but um no, I'm gonna stop there because that's kind of like a lot.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. Definitely. And this is really, I mean, ultimately, this in energetic terms, this is what it means to alchemize the energy. where you
Right.
can experience significant loss and turn that into a win. Maybe you might not understand it immediately in that present moment, but if you can teach yourself to experience that joy and celebration, then is it really a loss? You know, the energy
Exactly.
begins to be changed from something that like is like being taken from you to something that is being provided for you.
Right. Right, exactly. And so this is why you see black people, they're out here, learning line dances and all of this stuff. Is like, what is going on? Like, people don't even notice. We're just not like involved in all of this stuff. We're doing what we always do. And people say, how can you celebrate while everything is going so bad? A lot of liberals are saying that. Like, how can you celebrate while everything is falling apart? And you don't understand. That is what you have to do. You have to celebrate while everything is falling apart. It's like they say that kind of stuff in church, right? I mean, at least in black churches, it's very common to hear that kind of like discussion, but the way they discuss it is that it's in a delusional way. Like, you don't want to pretend like everything is good when it's bad. Like, no. You want to celebrate in spite of it being bad, in spite of you having X, Y, and Z problems. You still want to celebrate. So, like, one thing I did today, this is a personal one day for me. So one thing I did today was I put on makeup. Now I'm just driving a bus, going to the school, sitting at the school all day, recording videos and doing the stuff that I do, and then getting on the bus and driving back home. That's the entirety of my job. Why do I need makeup? Why I need to dress up every day? That's my defiant celebration of myself in spite of what is going on around me. And little stuff like that changes everything. Everything around you literally changes when you can have that kind of philosophy about stuff. So it's like people who are like maintaining themselves, but again, not in a way that's delusional, not in a way that you're lying to yourself about what is going on, but in a way that's like, this is the least I can do. And I told this story before. When I started my channel, my YouTube channel back in 2022, I started it because I was like, okay, so my business is failing. My life is falling apart. Nothing seems to be working. There's nothing that I can do to make this thing work. But I see that there's a group of people, because I was like studying with this whole YouTube group of people. And so I'm like, I see these group of people. They don't understand the energy. Somehow I understand the energy. The very least I could do is help them understand the energy. So I just started doing daily prayers. I was already doing my own prayers. So I just started basically recording them and doing energy readings with reading the Bible, putting the tarot cards out, and kind of just feeling around the energy. But that was the least that I could do to help the people around me. Now, what has happened since then? Well, somebody didn't like that, and I know that. I was going to tell this story. So one of my daily prayer videos, because I was doing two a day actually. It was stupendous, but and they were like 30 minutes each, and it was like no joke because I had my whole studio set up because I come from a radio, film, and TV background. My mom, that's what her major was. I did radio, film, and TV all through high school, all through college. I was involved in all that stuff. I produced shows and stuff like that. So I'm very aware of how all of that, like the production process works. So I'm recording a video. I'm recording one of the daily prayers, and I have a statue here of Barashio, which is Zeta Kettlebob or Gay Ira. But anyway, she's the archangel over Jupiter. And so I'm recording my video like I always do. I have the mics, I have everything. It's just like I'm recording my videos. Okay. This um first I started hearing, because I had a like headset in so I could hear what I sounded like. So first I started hearing some weird feedback in my microphone, and the next thing I knew, the statue flew across the room. Like an entity was mad and knocked the statue across the room. And I was like, did y'all see that? did y'all see that? I wish I had been live. I wasn't live. I recorded it. No, I might have been live. Actually, I was like, did y'all see that? And when I went back and looked at it, you couldn't see the whole thing, but literally you saw the statue fly, and her wing is still broken to this day because of that incident I had. So I was making them mad just doing that. Just reading tarot cards and talking about the astrology of the day and saying prayers. That was enough to piss these people off. Imagine how pissed off they are now. Now I've got the whole calendar, the whole keys to the kingdom. Of course, they would think I'm going to be impoverished forever. Of course, they would want me to believe that, because then I'm going to keep calling that in. But because I unboxed my creator, I unwombed my creator. I took my creator out of the womb and put him and said, look, you're a child or an adult or whoever. Do what you want. How can I put limits on the one who created me? That's insane. I'm not going to do that. So because I did that, in October. Now, when I started making the videos, it was in July. So by October, I was like, listen, I'm going to follow the creator wherever he's going to go. Because if these entities are going to come in here and mess with my stuff, then yeah, I need to be following the creator where he wants to go, because I know that's not allowed. So how do I remedy that? I need to know how they operate, where they go, what they do. I got to find everything out. I don't let an enemy attack me that I'm not fully aware of. As a matter of fact, I also told this story, this whole prophecy thing I had with Trump. I was like, I'm not getting into that because I don't know who Hillary Clinton works with. I don't know what God she works with, and I refuse to participate in anybody's stuff if I don't know what God they work with. And so I refuse to do it because I was like, nah, I'm not getting involved in this. Y'all not gonna have her take my family out because of this and that and all of this stuff. So no. Now I seen a video today. This heifer is on CNN or whatever talking about some Trump did a good thing in ending the Gaza situation. What? I said she's been defeated. That is a monster, a mountain that's been defeated. Again, these are all things I asked for in 2022. They're now starting to show up in full force in a way that I can understand it. So part of this is also because, remember, at the beginning of this lunar year, which was September the 7th, I told everybody, listen, I'm going to ask Poseidon, because that was a vow day. I'm going to make a vow to Poseidon and ask him to give me safe passage and safe harbor, because it's Poseidon, it's dealing with the water and all of that. And so because Poseidon gave us safe passage and safe harbor, we're now able to uncover the deep mysteries of this thing. Because I've been going and spinning in circles for 3 years, not seeing any results. Now, all of a sudden, I get safe passage and safe harbor. I'm able to see the results. So you always have to go back, right? This is why you have to keep records. Go back and fake. This is me coming back to Poseidon saying thank you for giving me safe passage and safe harbor. You can't forget how you got it. That's another thing they don't want people to do. They want people to think that these false spirits. This is why people believe these spirits are more powerful than they are, because something good happens and they think they call it God, but they really don't mean God because they have a false spirit in them. They really mean this deceiver. And then when something bad happens, they're blaming God even though it was a deceiver. So they got their whole system messed up, and they don't even understand that you have to go back and thank the one who did it. Like, you can't be messing around with that. And because we have the keys, we have the calendar, that's the key, we know who to thank for what. So we have to really, pay our respects to Poseidon for coming through with what he's going to do. So what I said I was going to do was focus on getting good, clean water to people, so people have access to clean water. Well, what has happened since then? Now this whole thing, everybody is talking about the chemtrails and all of that, and they introduced this whole bill and weaponized it, and it's a whole big thing. So guess what? Now, when the water falls from the sky, it's clean. As opposed to, because when rain has that negative OH ions in it, it's basically like holy water. So if it rains this weekend, go outside and collect you some water. That's holy water. Literally, it is clean water falling from the sky. That was something that I had to put my energy into in order to get it. Because if I didn't put my energy into getting clean water, then I would be breaking my vow to Poseidon. So that's another part of this. Like, that's why you have to know, like, what to put your energy into that's going to help an entity that you promise to help. So you don't want to negate your promises either, because we're courting these guys. These are, budding friendships. We want to say, no, we understand what's going on. We're going to relay back to the people what is happening, because nobody will ever know. And I started saying this when I started telling the story. I made a whole video every year at the beginning, the last day of the year, which is the day I observe the sun change stations in March. I make a video, and I said, in the video is called the timeline of our redemption. And I go back and I tell the story of from 2022, when I first did my first fast, all the way into that point, what the creator has done. And I encode that. Like, no, you're not going to make us forget it. No, you're not going to make us think we're crazy. No, you can't write it out the history books, because it's not going to be in your history books. We're keeping our own records, because that's something that is important to me. And that's what you have to do in your own journey. You have to keep your records. Now, I'm not saying it's going to take 3 years for stuff that you asked for to show up, because that's what I'm here to do now. I'm here to prophesy to the dead bones. So there's in Ezekiel has a vision, and the vision is of a field full of dead bones, like dried up bones. They're just bones, and they're all dead. They're dry. And the Lord tells Ezekiel to prophesy to the dead bones. And Ezekiel prophesies to the dead bones, and the dead bones come back together. And then the Lord tells Ezekiel to breathe the wind from the four winds into the bones, and he breathes the winds into the bones, and the bones come alive and they come to order. Well, what is that? That's our scales. So if I can prophesy to somebody, hey, your life is worth value, then I can go and give them the scales, and this is the life that belongs to you. This is the scale. This is what belongs to you on every scale from 1 to 13. And it'll be more than that eventually, but from 1 to 13, this is the energy that belongs to you. Does that not breathe the life of the spirit into the dead bones? Absolutely. So that's what I've been doing. I had no idea. That just came up, like, again, another one of those things that came up today as a part of this whole discussion. Breathing. And then once I can do it, because it's a system, it's not, it's in me, it's not on me. So because it's in me, I can document it. It's a system that can be copied. If it was something that I was just wearing, if it was a title that someone gave me and passed down some secret knowledge that only they knew, and they didn't know how they got it, but only they knew, then I couldn't pass it on. But because I learned it based on observing, I can show you how you can observe it. That means anybody can learn it. So instead of being me out here in the wilderness screaming by myself, eventually other people will be able to take this system and breathe life into the dead bones around them.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, this is I mean, it's good that we've I mean, it's very interesting because, like, you've done a lot of the structural work to bring forth something like the calendar, as well as all these other stuff, because the calendar is an aspect of a much larger overall way of living as a human being.
Right.
And then on my side, I've been doing the energetic work to understand how to basically live in joy. Because, it's one thing to say, like, yeah, just be, like, happy.
Right.
Like, people say, like, oh, just love yourself.
Oh my
People say
gosh.
all the time, just love yourself, but they don't even know what the definition of love is. They don't even know that
No.
love is unconditional in nature. They don't know that love means no attachments, no conditions, no expectations. So there's the beautiful thing is that as we merge all of these concepts together and bring them into that union, then we are able to provide people with the way in terms of what does it mean to, like, how do we teach and convince people that in times of great difficulty to smile, to be happy, to rejoice, to celebrate, that regardless of whatever might be happening in the love life of the individual, that the love that one feels for oneself within is only intensifying, it's only increasing. Because when you truly harness that ability to love thyself to such an intense unconditional love degree, it really is not possible to see anything as a negative. Like it's and you know, it's one thing to say it, to theorize it, and then it's another thing to actually experience it. And that's what I've been experiencing. I would say probably the last year since I was told that I have reached a level of fulfillment where you eventually have so much love overflowing from you that you become fulfilled. When you become fulfilled, you're just embracing the present in such a state that nothing is bad nor good. Now, obviously, being a human being and that Pavlovian response, and I've definitely been seeing it in that this past year, like there's still those attempts to make myself feel bad or make myself, you know, fall prey to seeing something as negative or positive or this or that. But in and the fulfillment that I feel is so overpowering that the Pavlovian response, it doesn't work. Like it's not
Right.
able to hook me before because the love always overpowers. Even if it might take a few minutes, a few hours, if it's really difficult, maybe a few days, could be a few weeks. The love always overpowers and alchemizes any energy that hits me.
Right.
And this is why in many ways, like you look at unconditional love and you speak to people about it, at least in the past, everybody believed that it wasn't real, that it was not
That's
possible,
true.
that
No, you're
you know
right.
that it was like it was a joke. It was a joke to tell people that I mean, I was flamed endlessly for telling people that I was like loving unconditionally. They're like,
Well,
no, you need
mind
to
you,
have conditions, you need to have this, you need to have that.
that means
But
those
it's like, but
people
who
don't
has tried it? Who
but
has
but that means those people don't believe in Jesus. Like that was a
yeah,
clear
right, right.
indicator that those people don't believe in Jesus because Jesus gave unconditional love.
Mm.
Who he said you know something about laying down your life for your friends. Like what greater love is there than to lay down your life for your friends? Like that's a literal statement. So they literally don't believe that Jesus died for their sins. Now, Jesus didn't die for their sins. He wanted to be the example, but still, that means they don't believe Jesus died for their sins in any capacity, which means you don't believe that Jesus was here because the evidence of that is all over the place. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like you
and
can't,
really,
it's everywhere.
and I think by not believing in Jesus, really what humans are doing is they don't believe in themselves.
Right, exactly.
That's
You
that's,
don't
that's
exist either. You didn't come through a portal for a purpose. That's really what it is. They don't believe they came through the portal for a purpose. They are literally the dead bones, which is why I was talking about we have to
mm.
speak life. We have to prophesy over the dead bones. Prophesy again, confirm truth. Like the truth is, if you're a woman, you're a woman. If you're a man, you're a man. That's the truth. I'm not going to lie to a man and tell a man that they're a woman. I'm not confirming delusion, okay? But what are most people out here? Oh, well, your stomach hurts, you know, just go and get a drug. That'll fix it. No, I'm not confirming delusion. I'm going to say to that person, you might need to deal with that entity attachment you got. You might want to do something about that, something spiritual about that, because it's not a physical problem. It's expressing as a physical problem, but it's really a spiritual problem. I'm going to confirm the
Mm.
truth. I'm not going to confirm a delusion. Yeah, and that's not to say don't go to the doctor, but if you're going to go to the doctor, at least do something about the spiritual aspect of it in the process so that whatever the doctor does will work. Otherwise, whatever the doctor does is not going to work because you haven't dealt with the spiritual aspect.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think we can end it here. Obviously, would love to keep talking, but I do actually have to go.
No, that's cool.
Um, but I think this was a great. I think maybe the next one we could go deeper into what you were mentioning in terms of like,
Freely
you know,
being given.
yeah, yes, right, exactly, and
Yes.
just really delineate. Um, okay, you know, what's the mode of like, you know, we are very powerful, energetic, divine beings. How do we move with this power? Because
Right.
we have this insane amount of power, and but if we don't know how to harness it, we're just gonna be creating chaos. Like we're just gonna be creating havoc.
Right.
And so I think if we become very aware of, okay, what does this mean in terms of what does it mean to one have all this power? Like,
Right.
what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that mean? How do we get there? And then as a result of that, like, how does that change the way that we interact with the reality from kind of what we were programmed to be, which is more of that Pavlovian response where we're just reacting, where
Right.
it's like, well, I'm working for money.
Right.
Well, I'm doing this because of that. This, it's just survival. It's just pure
Right.
peasant, scarcity minded survival
Right.
to now where you have everything.
Right.
And if you have everything, how do you truly actually get into that state of knowing that you are everything? And as a result of being everything, how do you talk? How do you think? How do you interact with the material, physical world as well as the spiritual in a way that is obviously in alignment?
Right. We're gonna call that free love. Free love. That's what it is. It's free love.
Beautiful. I
Yeah.
love it. Awesome. Yeah, this is great. This is we're doing some awesome work.
Absolutely. So we'll talk again on Tuesday then.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining, and yeah, we'll be talking on